Alrighty, let's get this party started. Before we jump into the topics today, I want to acknowledge two people that gave me donations via PayPal, Chad and Brian. Now, I'm going to do that on air from now on because for those of you that have donated via PayPal, I have made an effort to email every single person to thank them, to show my gratitude for your generosity. But PayPal has changed their platform somehow where you can't email people directly. So that sucks because I like to, personalize a message to everybody. But until they fix that or I figure out how to email people or use the chat feature, I'm just going to say your names on air. So for privacy purposes, it'll just be your first name. So thanks to Chad and Brian for your donations. All right. Now, I do not have a positive news story today, but I do have the good news of the gospel to bring you. So, this is the verse of the day from the Bible that I have installed on my phone. Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and he will give you everything you need. So, that one really that's one that could be the verse of the day every day for me. It just resonates. It's a feel good, Um, so yeah, that's the good news. The good news of the gospel. You'll never have everything you want, but you'll always have everything you need. And God's timing is divine and perfect. Okay? So maybe I'll just do verse of the day every day. I don't know. I would like to do news stories as well, but you guys aren't emailing me. I had one person that was actually spamming my email basically. I mean, he was sending a lot of articles and good informative topics, but it was just flooding my inbox to the point where I couldn't see anyone else's emails if they were coming in. So I took care of that. And so now if you actually email any news topic that is positive, because that's what I'm looking for, there's no shortage of negative topics to cover. So try to send me something that's positive or something that's not getting national attention. Email it to MikeNificent813@gmail.com. All right. Now, let's talk about the Supreme Court judges. Now, Trump appointed 3: Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett. And just when I think about their, being confirmed to the Supreme Court, when I reflect on everything that went on with Brett Kavanaugh, was that 2018? You had the Christine Blasey Ford testimony, that phony situation. You had leftists screeching, pounding on the doors of the Supreme Court. You had media attacking him, calling him a rapist, bringing up everything he ever did in his entire life, college. He drank beer in college. He was drunk rapist. All these women just came out of the woodworks, even though a bunch of women came to his defense and said, no, he's a good guy, yada, yada, yada. But the whole reason they were outraged over Brett Kavanaugh is why? He is going to overturn Roe v. Wade. We just know it. They fear-mongered at the top of a mountain that Brett Kavanaugh is going to he's going to be a Trump's little yes man on the Supreme Court. He's going to legislate from the bench. He's going to set back civil rights, decades, all of those things. And none of it ever came true. Now, let that be a lesson for those that may still believe, and I know that's not hardly anyone in my audience, for those that may believe when the media is, constantly pushing out all this fear, when they fearmonger over something, it almost never comes true. In fact, this is a situation where I actually wish that it came true. I wish they were telling the truth about Brett Kavanaugh. I wish that he was going to be this like originalist, constitutional conservative on the Supreme Court that just really helped to be firm on preserving the Constitution and liberties, protect liberties. I was really hoping that was going to be the case, but it ended up being fool's gold. Brett Kavanaugh has caved. He's been a disappointment. Now, Neil Gorsuch has actually been solid. Neil Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas have been really good, even though Trump didn't appoint Clarence Thomas. But of the 3 appointees that Trump put on the Supreme Court, only Neil Gorsuch has panned out so far. Now, obviously the court, it's a lifetime appointment, so it could change. But Brett Kavanaugh, man, disappointment. And then you think about Amy Coney Barrett. It's only been a year since she's been on the bench. And remember, this was like right after RBG died. And they're like, you need to wait until after the election to appoint someone. That the left just freaked out. They freaked out. They panicked. They said the Supreme Court, it's going to be religious zealots. Amy Coney Barrett is a religious zealot. She's such a hardcore Catholic. They said the religious dogma lives loudly in her. And it's like another situation where they just fear-mongered. And now they're bragging about Amy Coney Barrett voting with the left, voting with liberal judges. And the headlines just, they read like nightmares. And I'm just, let me say this too. Constitutional liberties need to be protected at your local level, your state and local level. It should never end up in the Supreme Court. But in the case that it does, you should hope that the Supreme Court, especially if it's a conservative constitutional majority, would rule in favor of the people, rule in favor of Constitution. They should be just strictly constitutional judges, but not really. And so the headline, U.S. Supreme Court rejects religious challenge to Maine vaccine mandate. That's a huge disappointment. You're going to have so many cases elevated to the Supreme Court over these vaccine mandates. And so this situation in Maine, I mean, that just seems like one of many that they're going to end up rejecting, not preserving medical freedom and religious exemptions of all things. Religious exemptions. They're not going to rule in favor of the individuals who are claiming religious exemptions, which is constitutionally protected. It's just a massive disappointment. But I remember at the time, and even I was guilty of this too, being really excited for Brett Kavanaugh, feeling really hopeful about Amy Coney Barrett. Yes, we got this conservative majority. No more crazy legislation. Maybe we can actually overturn Roe v. Wade. And now it just looks like the left was really just afraid all along. But in reality, they got to feel good about this. And those that seek to control you via big pharmaceutical products, they got to love this too. And some people I saw in the comments are like, are they compromised? Did somebody get to Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh? Have they been co-opted? Have they been threatened? I mean, it's possible. I mean, anything is possible. They could be corrupt. I know that Amy Coney Barrett is like a George Bush era judge. And, you know, I don't really weigh in too much on judicial matters. You never really hear me talk about it because there's a lot of like understanding law and just boring stuff to me. But when I think about how much they put these two judges through the ringer only for these judges to try to appear moderate, it's laughable. It honestly is laughable. All of the trial and the hearing and everyone just panicking. Well, where's the panic now when they're just voting in favor of big pharma and big government? And that's not even the worst. I mean, this headline right here from Newsweek: Trump SCOTUS appointees Kavanaugh and Barrett renew hope for abortion advocates. So if they can't even protect, it's one thing if they don't protect your religious exemptions and your freedoms and all of that. I mean, obviously they don't care too much about the First Amendment. Who knows what's going to happen with the Second Amendment if anything escalates to the Supreme Court. But if they can't even protect the unborn, so now it's possible that they strike down the Texas heartbeat bill, which I've said repeatedly over and over, it still allows for abortion. The Texas heartbeat bill doesn't go far enough. It doesn't completely outlaw abortion. It just says once there's a heartbeat detected, you can't kill the baby. So they can't even like stand with the unborn when a heartbeat is protected. So I guess they haven't voted on it yet, but they're raising questions and concerns over this Texas heartbeat bill. And I guess one of the concerns that they're raising, I guess it's kind of, I don't know how I feel about it, but that you can basically they'll reward you if you catch people committing or performing abortions in the state of Texas, where you can basically be like a bounty hunter, kind of, sort of like root them out, find them. I don't know how I feel about it. I haven't thought too much about it, but that's one of the concerns they're raising. But like, this is a bad look. These are bad optics. Now, just like Trump endorsing Brian Kemp, endorsing other people that stabbed him in the back. He campaigned for Lindsey Graham for his last election. We'll get to him in a second. It's who told him that these were two good appointees, and maybe they were solid appointees at the time. But now that doesn't appear to be the case, and this is when you kind of need SCOTUS the most right now. So if you don't have a check and balance, even at the judicial level, Supreme Court level, then it's just not a good look at all. So huge, massive disappointments. Fool's gold, Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh. Neil Gorsuch, solid. I don't know. I guess it just kind of is what it is. Maybe the tide will turn. But right now, with all of the chaos and craziness and the lawsuits just all over the place right now, it doesn't look very promising at the Supreme Court level. Now, I guess we'll get to the Tucker Carlson documentary, the Patriot Purge, which I have now seen 2 episodes of it. The third episode, I think third and final episode, will be released tomorrow. Now, if you're wondering how to watch it, you can watch it through Fox Nation. I get it. We talked about it yesterday. Not funding corporate media. I get it. For me, it was $1. I paid $1 for a 30-day trial. And that was, to me, a good investment because it gave me something to talk about. My very first super chat will offset that $1 that I spent. But I think there's a way to get like 90 days for free if you go through tuckercarlson.com. I don't know. But bottom line is, if you want to see this thing, you can. And maybe you should, right? Here are my thoughts. I have a couple notes that I don't want to forget what I had written down. Just a few bullet points. And this isn't like necessarily a full review. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's not going to be necessarily a spoiler alert. Actually, if you've been paying attention, nothing in this documentary will even surprise you, which I recognize some people are disappointed. Like, tell us something new, something we haven't heard of yet. I get that, but you've also been paying attention this whole time. So none of it should come as a surprise to you, right? I mean, you have to view this through the lens of a normie, somebody who may just be seeing it for the first time, may just be exposed to an alternative viewpoint or perspective or narrative of what happened on January 6th. Somebody who's just now waking up to it, that's their perspective. So that's why I'm looking at it through that lens. And like the way I see it, it was graphic. It was disturbing. I mean, really graphic. I mean, they showed what happened to Ashley Babbitt. There's a lot of B-roll of just Vietnam War, Civil War, different war times. So it's pretty graphic, but it's also engaging because the B-roll, just the editing and all of that stuff. I don't want to get super into like the production value of it, but it's really good. It's good. But it's also disturbing. If I were just seeing this for the first time, I would be completely disturbed that the federal government has this much power and how they are so openly hostile towards their own citizens. So it's kind of terrifying in that sense. And they draw parallels to the War on Terror, which followed 9/11, while not completely saying that 9/11 was an inside job or a false flag or anything like that. The suggestion is kind of made over and over, but he's not outright saying it. They're not outright saying it. They're just drawing comparisons to what happened after 9/11. What did we see? We saw the Patriot Act and, of course, the War on Terror, which just created a power vacuum for more terrorists in the Middle East. But now that that's waning down, or at least appears to be waning down, they've amped up their new War on Terror, which is domestic terror. They keep saying, America, the biggest domestic terror threat you face is white supremacy. So it's got great sound bites of Joe Biden constantly saying white supremacy, insurrection, domestic terror threat. They keep on saying that, regurgitating that, even to this day. But they provided great sound bites and clips for this documentary. So he talked about that. He also referenced the 2020 riots that went completely unchecked. Nobody referred to it as domestic terrorism, even though it was domestic terrorism. Dozens of people lost their life last year. Billions of dollars of damage nationwide from LA to New York City and all the cities in between. You had some level of riots, violence, and then you've seen a surge in crime since then. Also, while defund the police and everything else, it just all kind of tied together in the documentary. They also interviewed a couple patriots that were actually at the Capitol building or went to DC. And I think the people that they interviewed, with the exception of slightly offensive Elijah Schaefer, none of them were in the building. And yet the FBI kicked in their door. They've been under a microscope ever since. Now, here, as I watched it, what I was thinking to myself is how, and I'm not bragging about this at all, but it's such a blessing that God kept me a step ahead of everything that's been going on in the country. For example, you guys know I've talked about it many times. I used to live in Minneapolis, right in the heart of the city where a majority of the riots took place. If I were still living there, it's possible I could have had my house ransacked or my car vandalized or something like that. But I moved out of that city. God took me out of Minneapolis, moved me out of there before the crime wave, before the surge. And now Minneapolis is about to reclaim its infamous title from years ago, Murderapolis. Right? And then when you think about the January 6th event, which was just a peaceful protest, Trump called all of his supporters to go to DC. Obviously, I work for RSBN and we were there covering it, but I wasn't in DC on January 6th. Why? People didn't know. I don't know if you guys knew that. I actually was not in DC January 6th. The reason why is because my wife had an appointment, because that time she was pregnant. So, and that was like the day before January 6th. So I had just left the Trump rally. I think it was his last rally before the election, the runoff for Senate seats in Georgia. So anyway, I was actually in Georgia, and everybody that I was with, my crew, they went straight from Georgia to DC. But me, I went back home. And I also had this feeling like in the pit of my stomach that something was going to go down on January 6th. I just had that feeling because all of it had been building to that moment where they were going to certify and Mike Pence was supposed to do the right thing and all of that. And I just knew in my heart, I'm like, Mike Pence isn't going to do the right thing. Mike Pence isn't going to do that. And people are going to be pissed off. And all I thought to myself was, I hope cooler heads prevail. I hope that there's not any violence, most especially because I know people there. I knew a bunch of people that were going there. I worked with people that were there covering it. I could have easily been there. Now, who's to say that had I gone there, that the FBI wouldn't have then investigated me? Hell, I know people here in Florida that never set foot in DC that week, and they had the FBI knocking at their door. So there were plenty of people who were obviously outside of the Capitol building, never went inside. Some of them have been arrested and charged. People who didn't even go to DC at all, who have had at least the FBI show up at their door and try to get statements and ask them all kind of questions or whatever. So that could have easily been brought on me. Thank God it wasn't. So that's just a little side story. As I'm watching this, that's what I was thinking. It's just how fortunate I am to always be a step ahead of the drama. And it just reinforces my faith. That really is all it is. But back to the January 6th thing. Sorry for that little sidetrack thing there. But back to January 6th, right? The way that the media frames this Tucker Carlson documentary, which again, if you have been paying attention, this isn't explosive for you. This isn't some like bombshell thing. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so indicting and riveting. It's good, it's well produced, but you already knew all the stuff. Now, the way the media is framing it, the way the media is so outraged, like this headline here, CNN's Jim Acosta warns Tucker Carlson's January 6th film could start a civil war. Why are you doing this to America? See, the way that they're sounding the alarms is because it's a very hard-hitting piece of journalism for those who only believe what they've been told the official story was via CNN. There's several in other news outlets, obviously not just CNN. There were several claims made that were debunked before the documentary, but the documentary really just kind of tied it all together, condensed it all, put it all in one little short segment. One example, the officer that was supposedly beaten and bludgeoned to death with a fire extinguisher. Never happened, fake news. Then they said something about, well, he was pepper sprayed. Then the New York Times had to retract that. So if you were watching the Tucker Carlson documentary and it was your first time and you just happen to not be, maybe involved in politics at all, you see that for the first time, you're like, wow, fake news. There was a different story. I mean, you can even get the average normie out there to think that there was something else there on 9/11. There's something we're not being told. So this is the next step. You can get people can see this as well. And over time, I think they probably will. But the fact that CNN is saying this could start a civil war, it's an inversion of what it would actually do, because for patriots, and maybe this is the one eye-opening thing for patriots, people who've been paying attention, who watched the documentary, it exposed the FBI informants, the plants, the leftists that were provocateurs, that were embedded within the crowd, that, instigated and got the ball rolling. And it basically, it just underscores that was a honeypot trap, just like the Justice for J6. So if anything, this would have a chilling effect for these so-called right-wing extremists and domestic terrorists to say, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm going to the next conservative gathering. I don't know that if Trump or anyone else called a bunch of patriots to DC, that I would go this time. So if anything, Tucker Carlson's documentary would have the opposite effect. But no, CNN has to paint it as this is going to start a civil war. How? In what way? Explain it. Explain to me how people watching this documentary unfold and seeing how the FBI and the DOJ and the Biden administration are targeting American citizens, trying to purge dissent from ranks of the military so that they can have people within the ranks that will not be provide some restraint against government overreach and overzealous policing and investigating. They're trying to purge the ranks so they can have people in there that will just be minions, just do the bidding of your commander in chief, which is target your political opposition. Political persecution, lock them up. So that's what this is all about. They're sounding the alarms. They're calling Tucker Carlson a white nationalist. They're doing everything they can to discourage curiosity. They don't want anybody looking into the documentary. They don't want anybody questioning the official narrative of what happened on January 6th. That's what it's about. That's why I think it's still so powerful for people to see. And the proof, again, just to reiterate, is the fact that the media is in a full-blown panic. They're full-blown attacking and fear-mongering like unbelievable levels. Why are you doing this to America? Doing what? Journalism? Showing footage? Thank God we have cell phones now, because cell phones provide a check on the official narrative that you would get from corporate news. Before the age of camera phones, you kind of had to trust what they told you. Unless you were physically there, you don't know what's true or not. So many people just blindly trusted mainstream news. But now with the rise of social media and the fact that everybody can be a journalist on the spot recording what's happening, you can debunk their narratives. You can expose their agenda very easily in real time. As they're saying fiery but mostly peaceful, you could be showing a bunch of violence happening on the other side if they're not showing you. And that's what they don't want. So they're trying to stop this. They're trying to do whatever they can to keep this thing from being seen, including attacking Tucker Carlson, which they've been doing for years, attacking you, attacking anybody that supports or watches this, saying this is going to cause another civil war. Be afraid. Be afraid. Tucker Carlson is igniting the right-wing extremists. Extreme compared to what? Far right compared to what? They never explain it. They just say it's far right, it's extreme, it's dangerous. And so CNN, of all news outlets, is saying, watch out for this. Jim Acosta called it Proud Boys porn. That's what he referred to the documentary as. Saying you got to watch the propaganda. Really? This from the news network that brought you fiery but mostly peaceful? And they're shouting death to America, but they seem pretty friendly otherwise, other than saying death to America. Of all networks, CNN has no room to talk about the fake news. Covington Catholic, fake news. They've been exposed. Now that you can go back and pull up archived videos, they've been exposed for a long time for their fake news, their propaganda, and their corporate sponsored, corporate funded propaganda. Big pharma propaganda, military industrial complex propaganda. They helped lie us into that first war on terror. And now they're trying to divert the public attention away from the new war on terror, which is the domestic war on terror, which is just political persecution. Get anybody out of the way that would provide any kind of recourse against their better judgment of what the government is trying to do, which is purge political dissent and persecute people who voted for Trump. It's about punishing you. And one person in the documentary actually said that. She referenced Trump's tweet. She referenced Trump's tweet where he said, they're not after me, they're after you. They don't hate me because, what did he say? They don't hate me because they hate you. They hate you because they hate me, or something like that. I forget what it exactly was. But he basically said, I'm standing in their way. And now that they've essentially gotten Trump out of the way, now they're going full throttle, pedal to the metal. Let's punish and purge and persecute anybody that led to the election of Donald Trump. And they're accelerating their Great Reset efforts. Think about this. If Hillary were elected in 2016, we would already see half of this come to fruition already. But Trump was essentially a roadblock, a 4-year roadblock, which is why all the elites hate him. All of the people who shouted F Trump were elites. They're so mad about this Let's Go Brandon thing. It's the elites that were saying F Trump. It was Kathy Griffin holding up a severed head of Trump. Snoop Dogg with the video of him shooting Trump. What's his name? Robert De Niro saying F Trump at the awards, but they're mad about Let's Go Brandon. Let's Go Brandon being chanted by just every ordinary, everyday American citizen. So now it makes sense, right? All the elites, all the people who want to conquer the planet, all hated the one guy who was at least temporarily blocking them from doing so. And now that they've fortified an election and got him out of the way, got their pawn, their puppet in there, now they're going after you. And that's what this documentary exposes. And that's why they're saying this film could start a civil war. Coming from the guy with a Pinocchio-sized nose. The biggest liars on earth probably come from that network. And they even hired a Zoom call masturbator back to be an anti-Trump mouthpiece. But that's another little side note for them. They're sickos over there. So while this Capitol insurrection took place, Lindsey Graham urged police to use their guns during the riot. So they call it a riot. Even though we got the footage, we got the receipts. Yes, there were some provocateurs. There were some bad actors. We also got people on footage saying, this is not who we are. You got Alex Jones on camera. There's a reason why they weren't able to get Alex Jones, because of the soundbite of Alex Jones telling people, don't go in. Don't see, he was ahead of the curve. He was saying, don't do what they want you to do. He saw it for what it was, a false flag. He saw that they were trying to get people to go in, trying to set patriots up. So Alex Jones is actually saying, don't go in. So you have plenty of people who are on record saying don't go in because of patriot journalists, because of everyday people with cell phones recording. That saved a lot of this persecution. So they try to paint it as this violent, right-wing extremist, white supremacist insurrection, even though there was all kind of Vietnamese and Filipinos, all kind of people there who just wanted election integrity. That's it. Nobody showed up to DC that day like, we're going to go in there and get Nancy. Nobody, no. But anyway, as people were peacefully assembling, and some people even went inside, taking photos, taking selfies, basically taking a tour of the Capitol building, basically being escorted by Capitol Police, Lindsey Graham urged Capitol Police to use their guns. And again, Trump campaigned for this guy. I think he was reelected in 2018. Trump campaigned for Lindsey Graham, this so-called Republican, this weakling. And he wanted the Capitol Police to murder American citizens. You got your guns, use them. South Carolina, I hope you remember this. If you live in South Carolina, I hope you remember this. This guy needs to be voted out of office, and that is an understatement. Send him packing. This corrupt career politician, it's beyond him just being a rhino. He's just evil. He wanted people to be shot. Where was all this overzealous, demands for people to be shot and law and order during the summer riots of 2020, where people were actually murdered, had their businesses destroyed, their livelihoods destroyed? That destruction of summer of 2020, no media outrage, none of it. And so maybe they felt like, some of the people on January 6th felt like, well, the left did it, we can do it. And I think it amounted to some broken windows, a stolen laptop, and the only person that died that day was a Trump supporter. But where was Lindsey Graham last year during the riots? Where were all the politicians now that are praising the Capitol Police when not even a year ago they wanted to defund the police? So there's a lot there with this documentary. So hopefully you guys check it out. I recommend it. I think that it's informative, it's interesting, and even if you know all the stuff that happened that day, it's still good to see it put together in a nice little documentary that they're trying so desperately to keep people from watching. Don't watch this white supremacist film. It's their new term. They've overused that term so much. Everyone is a white supremacist. Everyone, every single person who isn't on board with Joe Biden's Build Back Better agenda, anyone who opposes draconian COVID restrictions, anybody that has a Constitution or Bill of Rights in their house, anybody that's for the Second Amendment, anybody that stands up against the indoctrination of their kids, you're all white supremacists. You're a white supremacist. You're a white supremacist. We're all white supremacists. Candace Owens is a white supremacist. Larry Elder is a white supremacist. Brandon Tatum is a white supremacist. Everyone is a white supremacist. Dinesh D'Souza, you just go down the list. They're overusing that word to the point where it just doesn't even have meaning anymore. And I think people are starting to notice. I know that that video I released yesterday, it was just a clip from my live stream where I talked about Minneapolis community leaders waking up and exposing the Black Lives Matter organization grift / shakedown, and how none of the money they fundraised went into the community. I showed that and I'm like, this is good. And some of you were like, it's too little too late. Since when is it too little too late to wake people up? You got to meet people where they are. If they're just now coming out of their slumber, yeah, you could say it's a little late, but shouldn't you be happy? Like, hey, finally, you see it. Good. That's what I think is happening slowly but surely. You got to meet people where they are. Some of you have been awake longer than me. Is it too late? And if it's too late, then I guess I should just cut this stream off and stop doing what I'm doing. There's no point, right? If I'm just constantly preaching to the choir and I'm not reaching anyone new, it's kind of a lost cause. Why do it? Why would anyone do it? So I think it's important. I think people are starting to slowly see. They were told Trump is a white supremacist extremist and everything is so racist because of him. He's emboldening these white supremacists. But now that he's not in office, they see things actually getting progressively worse. And now they're seeing that they're staging white supremacist false flags. There's hate crime hoaxes being exposed at alarming rates. Now it's like people are saying, well, even though I voted against Trump, because nobody voted for Biden, they voted against Trump. It's like I voted against Trump because I was told Orange Man's bad and it's really obvious Orange Man's bad. So let's vote him out. Now that they've effectively voted Biden in, they voted against Trump. So their whole motivation when they went into the booth was get Trump out of here. But they didn't think about what the consequences were of who would replace him. So now that he's in there, they're seeing things are actually significantly worse and getting progressively worse by the day. Now they're waking up. Now they're seeing it. A year later, they're seeing what happened with BLM. You've had the family of Michael Brown, I think Breonna Taylor, and Tamir Rice, 3 black people killed by police. Now they're waking up to the BLM grift and the fact that they were used by the media. They see all of this and they're waking up. So that's good. All right. Now let's move away from that topic and get to them freaking out over this Let's Go Brandon thing. Guys, you knew we had to get back to this. This is so great. The Let's Go Brandon meme. Let's just milk this for all it's worth. I want to see more Let's Go Brandon plastered everywhere. They're upset about AR-15s and gun parts saying, not F. Joe Biden, but Let's Go Brandon. Actually, this says F. Joe Biden, but it also says Let's Go Brandon. Have you ever seen them be so upset over words?
With Let's Go Brandon stickers. That's a code phrase for a swearing insult at the president. NBC's Ken Delanian is breaking this story. So, Ken, folks may have a lot of questions, especially trying to understand what this Brandon thing is. Take us through your reporting.
This is really the latest example of how volatile American politics has become, Joe. A South Carolina gun dealer called Palmetto State Armory is selling what is known as a lower receiver, which is essentially the guts of an AR-15 assault rifle branded Let's Go 15. And as you said, on the weapon's fire selector, the expletive we can't say on television is next to the safety mode, the word Joe is next to the single shot mode, and the word Biden is next to the automatic firing mode. Now, after I got a tip about this, I came across 2 other companies marketing AR-15 ammunition magazines with Let's Go Brandon stickers on them. None of the companies have responded to our request for comments. I reached out to the Secret Service to see whether they consider this a threat against the president, but a spokesman declined to comment. So far, we have not heard from the White House. The phrase Let's Go Brandon has become a right-wing code for expletive Joe Biden. It originated during a NASCAR race last month in Alabama when a driver named Brandon Brown was being interviewed by an NBC Sports reporter. A nearby crowd was chanting something that was difficult to make out, and the reporter suggested that they were chanting Let's Go Brandon to cheer the winning driver, but it became increasingly clear they were saying something else.
A right-wing code. It was hard to make out what they were saying. He's only saying that on air because he thinks his audience is stupid. Anyone who watched that clip, anybody could hear very clearly what they were saying, which is why Let's Go Brandon became a thing. That birthed a whole new meme because you could hear crystal clear what they were saying. She tried to cover it up. Nothing they were saying rhymed with Brandon or Let's Go for that matter. And it was their network, NBC. So perfect. And now they're mad over analyzing. This part of the clip says Joe. This part says Biden. You could just hear it in his voice. The hysteria in his voice. I love it. I love this outrage. These people can't cover it up. There's nothing they can do about Let's Go Brandon. It's topping the charts, multiple versions of the song. I think there was a country version of the song. It's everywhere. It's t-shirts, it's hats, it's bumper stickers. They're using this to work an angle like, look, these right-wingers, this is a right-wing trope, a code word. It was created by a left-wing journalist. Thank you very much. Don't leave out that little fact. But it's a right-wing trope. Right-wingers are using this term. It's so bad. It's so vulgar. It's Let's Go Brandon. It's family-friendly. They're using it to try to work an angle like it's on guns now. It's even on guns. We got to call Secret Service. They need to investigate it. Is the president under siege right now? Is there a threat on his life? So if you have a Let's Go Brandon bumper sticker, does that mean that your car is going to be your weapon of choice? Like, how much mental pretzels are they going to put themselves in to further try to attack the Let's Go Brandon? It's not working. This is reeks of desperation, just like the infamous day when she said, Let's Go Brandon. This one's almost up there. They're so mad. I saw Let's Go Brandon on a screwdriver. What does that mean? I saw it on a knife. What does that mean? And it goes on and on and on. It's funny. MSNBC, they're clowns. Let me get to these super chats really quick and then we'll move on. I did a bad job of that yesterday. There was some that came in early. Anyway, keep these memes coming. Let's Go Brandon. Thank you, Tony. And then Fball 21 for life says reports are saying VA voters are being turned away for not wearing a mask. It's legal. Don't let that stop y'all from voting. Virginians, go vote. We're going to talk about that actually next. I wanted to get this Let's Go Brandon thing out of the way. It's just really funny. They're so panicked. They hate it. They're mad about Tucker Carlson's documentary. They're mad about people waking up. And every single day, new people are looking into what Let's Go Brandon means. So it's just wonderful. Now, let's get right into the Virginia governor's race. Here's Terry McAuliffe's final words to Virginia voters. You just can't make this up.
And I promise you, we've got to diversify our teacher base here in Virginia. 50% of the students in Virginia schools, K-12, 50% are students of color, and yet 80% of the teachers are white. We all know what we have to do in a school to make everybody feel comfortable in school. So let's diversify. So here's what I'm going to do. We'll be the first state in America. If you'll teach for 5 years here in Virginia in a high demand area, that to be geographic or coursework, we will pay room, board, and tuition at any college, any university, any HBCU here in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
So you see what he's insinuating there, right? There are too many white teachers. And that's obviously because systemic racism is keeping black teachers out. And the people clapping like seals there, they obviously have no interest in looking into why that is. Is it because there are more white people that have gone into the profession? Is it an interest thing? And oh, by the way, who cares? Who cares? All that matters is if the kid gets a good education. I don't care what color the teacher is. No good parent should care what color the teacher is. Like, wow, that teacher's really, really good at explaining, breaking down concepts and helping students grasp those concepts. The only problem is she's white. Her skin color is wrong. She's a great educator. She's very professional. The kids really are receptive to her teaching style. They love her. She's great, but her skin color isn't the correct one. That's what he's saying. He's saying race needs to matter more than it does. They're just playing this race card, constantly beating this race drum. Race matters. The only thing that matters is race. We have too many white teachers. We have too many white this, not enough colored people. That's what they say. I don't give a damn that they say people of color. What they really mean is colored people. That's what they've always said, colored people. Now, if you just say people of color, it's different. But that's what he means. Colored children. That's what he's talking about. Just think about that for a second. The majority of the students, or 50% of the students, are colored. And there's too many white teachers. Maybe you're focused on the wrong thing. I really honestly think Virginia voters are going to make this guy pay. He's such a corrupt rat. He just is. He's right up there with Hillary Clinton. I wish Hillary would have campaigned for him. That really would have sealed his fate. Why didn't Hillary Clinton show up to campaign for him? You had everyone else, all the establishment figures. You had Obama, you had Biden, you had Kamala, you had the establishment media backing the guy, and it's having the opposite effect. Nobody's showing up at his rallies. He canceled a rally in Virginia Beach after making this statement. I don't know if that was related or not, but that's what the headlines kind of insinuated. I mean, he's such a racist and such a just bad person, just all around bad person. I can't think of anything. I can think of some things worse to say, but I'll just say he's just a bad guy. Just a bad guy. So Virginians are going to, vote accordingly today. And as I think about this race, right, as this headline reads, Virginia's governor's race, Glenn Youngkin may win due to white backlash. He won't win because he's the best candidate. He won't win because he opposes CRT, which doesn't stand for critical race theory, but it stands for, man, I'm butchering it now. I saw a sign that said something else. Oh, creating racial tension. That's what CRT really stands for. Creating racial tension. I totally bombed that. But anyway, it won't be because he opposes critical race theory. It won't be because he's the best candidate and he is likable and people are showing up and his message and his talking points and his policies resonate with the voters. It's due to white backlash. I've seen a couple of his rallies and I've seen the demographic that turns out. And there's black people there. Virginia is a very diverse state, especially up in the DC suburbs area of Northern Virginia. You got a lot of immigrants, man. So many immigrants in that area. And immigrants tend to be more conservative, the ones that come here legally anyway. And they don't want this racist, Marxist propaganda garbage taught to their kids either. So if there's anything more unifying than opposing critical race theory, this guy gets it. But of course, it's going to be white backlash. It's always got to be about white backlash. If anything good happens, it's because of a white backlash. That's why they don't want certain terms talked about. That's why in the Black Smithsonian History Museum, they put up that little, I don't know if it was like a display or whatever, where they talked about, y'all remember this from last summer? White traits. We're saying like punctuality, rugged individualism, hard work. Those are all traits of white privilege or something like that. Basically attributing things that make you successful to a skin color, not a mindset, not a personality. They boil you down to your exterior shell. And that's what they use to define you. And it's sick. And Glenn Youngkin opposes it. And so that's why you see stupid headlines like this. He's going to win due to white backlash. They just need an excuse to say, look, this white supremacy is on the rise again. That's why they had to stage a false flag. Now ask yourselves, why are they doing all this if elections are so rigged? I honestly don't know what to make of this. If Glenn Youngkin prevails tonight and he becomes the next governor of Virginia, I don't know what that's going to do to my psyche. What's it going to do to your psyche? Because on one hand, we saw what happened in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and even Nevada. We saw all of that happen. And it discouraged a lot of people. So if this election is clean and there doesn't appear to be any funny business, then obviously that doesn't mean elections aren't rigged. It doesn't mean that there isn't cheating going on. But how do you square that circle? I just don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I guess we got to wait and see. For whatever reason, I don't know. I've been kind of back and forth on this race. I kind of feel like they're going to find a way to steal it. They're going to find a way, because at this point, if you just use the eye test, McAuliffe does not have the momentum. He does not have the support. He does not have the backing. There's no enthusiasm. There's no energy. People know he's establishment. He's already been the governor before, which is a great referendum on him. Like, do we really want this guy again? Especially when he's so arrogant and he keeps playing the race card after it's been thoroughly debunked that the CRT is being taught in school, even though he said it's not. They covered up a rape, and he obviously supports transgenders in the bathrooms and all of the weird stuff that they're trying to push. He keeps saying they're trying to ban this book, which I forget the name again, but that book is very disgusting what's inside of it. Very, very sick stuff. And he's saying, Glenn Youngkin's coming along saying critical race theory is a white supremacist dog whistle. Only the left can hear dog whistles. Isn't that kind of interesting? Only they can hear racist dog whistles. So he says, yeah, Glenn Youngkin keeps saying this, and I'm going to ban this book and critical race theory. What he's really saying is, white people, we need to rise up. So I think Virginia voters see that. They see through that trash. And I just kind of feel like he could prevail. If this is a clean election, no doubt Glenn Youngkin wins. But I also won't be surprised if McAuliffe prevails. I mean, Virginia has been a very blue state. And after what we saw in 2020, I have my doubts. So we'll see. But Virginia is not the only state with the gubernatorial race. You've got New Jersey. GOP looks for an upset in the governor's race as Democrats hope to buck history. New Jersey voters will decide Tuesday whether to make Governor Phil Murphy the first incumbent Democrat to be reelected since 1977. And his opponent, Jack, and I suck with these names, you guys. Ciattarelli, that's what I'm going with. That's his Republican opponent. Now, here's the other thing too, and I want to bring up this point. I forgot about it. With the Tucker Carlson Patriot Purge documentary, there's a part of me that feels like, this is good, it's explosive, but what's going to happen? What's going to happen as a result? Probably nothing. Nothing changes. It may wake more people up if they get past the headlines and all the people trying to discourage people from even looking into it, even looking into January 6th events, whether through Tucker Carlson or someone else. If people can see through it, then maybe something will happen. But think about the Project Veritas explosive reporting, bombshells, hot mics, interviews, whistleblowers. They've come out over and over and over again, exposing election integrity. They've exposed the vaccine. They're exposing this governor who said he's going to implement a mandate right after he's elected. But will that change the minds of the voters? It's hard to imagine that it will. Now, James O'Keefe does great work. I love what Project Veritas does. It's very powerful stuff, but we're not seeing the results. It's like, whoa, look at this. You got to see this Project Veritas expose. It's been like 3 weeks and nobody even talks about it anymore because nothing happened. Nothing happened with Pfizer getting exposed, or the CDC, or I think it was the FDA got exposed to. Nothing happened. They exposed this governor in New Jersey, Phil Murphy, who also put COVID-infected patients in nursing homes. But the voters in New Jersey might just be like, no, let's just keep the status quo. We support vaccine mandates. But they don't understand, like, you support vaccine mandates, then shouldn't you be questioning the governor and why he's concealing and hiding his agenda? Why is he being so secretive? Why doesn't he just say, if reelected, I'm going to implement vaccine mandates? There's a reason why he's waiting, because he's trying to deceive independent and moderate voters. And he got exposed for that. Now, the stat is pretty promising that he would be the first incumbent Democrat to be reelected since 1977. I think everything that's going on right now, this election, is a referendum on the people in power. At the state level, at the federal level, local level. So New Jersey, Virginia, they're all going to be thinking about Biden and his policies, his disasters, and that will ultimately determine how they vote. The question is, will it make a difference in places like New Jersey? I don't know. That's not it. You've got Minneapolis here. Voters weigh whether to replace Minneapolis Police Department after George Floyd's killing. So that's on the ballot right there. That's a ballot measure right now in Minneapolis. I also think that they're voting for a new mayor, maybe. I haven't followed it closely, but this city is, they've already defunded the police. Now their plan is to replace police with something else. It's very loosely defined. It sounds like a pie in the sky. They're going to get rid of all their task force. So no matter what happens, they've already done the damage in Minneapolis. The crime is on the rise. Murders are on the rise. Drug deals are on the rise. Break-ins, robberies, everything, you name it. And their answer is to replace the police because they're the problem, right? They're the real problem. It's not the criminals. It's not the degeneracy. It's not the fatherless homes. It's not your rhetoric towards police that demoralize the good ones from doing their job. It's the cops themselves. So we'll see what Minneapolis voters say. We know what Ilhan Omar says, but now it's time to see how popular it really is. So we'll find out what Minneapolis does. That's something to pay close attention to. Moving on. This is not an exciting one to cover, but I had it on my list, so we'll just cover it. Mother is brought to tears as deranged leftists protest outside her daughter's wedding, all because Kirsten Sinema was a guest in attendance.
Could you just go down to the corner for an hour? How about this? My daughter's wedding. Just for an hour. Just let her get married, please. This person is not my daughter. My daughter's getting married.
Will you tell her that?
Did you invite Sinema really here?
No, listen. Tell her that we don't like what
Really
she's
here?
doing to our country.
How would you invite them?
You know what? Tell her.
We corrupted the whole country.
Tell her.
I don't disagree with any of you people when you're going to do and you're right. It's my daughter's wedding.
So throw her out.
Please just go down to the corner for 1 hour. Please. It's my daughter's wedding. Just 1 hour.
Unbelievable.
Leave, Sinema, leave if you have anything. Leave.
It's not. She's not my friend. She's not my guest.
We'll leave
Can I just make a compromise? We're protesting cinema. We're not protesting this drive. Let's just shut our mouths now. Let the ceremony begin. We can walk quietly with our signs. It's my daughter. I know. Okay.
Please.
Yeah. Okay.
Be quiet.
They have a right to protest. Stop talking to them. So let her go back in and play with her millionaires. I mean, I fought for your fucking right to protest. Woo! Thank you. So you go back inside. See your millionaire buddy. Thank you.
You know, they say that art imitates life, almost to the point where it appears to be a documentary, or life imitates art, some might say. This is what the zombie apocalypse looks like to me. The Walking Dead was maybe a documentary because these brain dead zombies protesting a wedding because someone they don't like is there is so far beyond psychotic. Again, when at any point in history was this a thing? This has been completely normalized, by the way. They openly promote hostility towards political opponents, towards dissidents, opposition. They're very hostile towards people that do not share their views. It's coming from one side. I don't hear any conservative, whether it's in media or politician, I never hear them say, go create a crowd around Gavin Newsom. They might say, hey, go protest Joe Biden. Go make your voices heard. But it amounts to people standing on a street corner or chanting F Joe Biden. But that's the extent of it. No one's going to rank and file members of the left and harassing them at weddings because someone you don't like is there. Like what? Oh, Alyssa Milano is down the street at this thing. Let me go pressure the restaurant to close down. You're feeding people I don't like. That's weird stuff. Your mind is completely mush. The gray matter in your head is just completely compromised. If you think this is okay, if you think it's normal, let's protest and try to ruin someone's wedding because Kirsten Sinema is holding up Biden's UN Build Back Better / Destroy America agenda. I have no doubt these might be paid LARPers. We've seen it before. It's all the time happening. Maxine Waters called for hostility towards political opponents. Nancy Pelosi has called for it. It's all documented. It's all on video for people that try to say, no, it's both sides doing it. Yeah, produce the video of montage video of right-wing media or Republicans calling for incivility, inflaming tensions, fanning the flames of hostility in the country. Show me the video, produce it right now. You can't do it because it doesn't exist. But the contrary, it does. Yes, these leftist devils are promoting this hostility and this vitriol that has led to violence. In some cases, it's led to death. All because of someone's political views. So that Kirsten Sinema, I thought they loved her. She was the first bisexual member of Congress, whatever that means, the first really horny person. Like what? You're celebrating the fact that whatever. Anyway, she was a darling when she got elected, but now that she is a cog in the machine, she's blocking this agenda. Now they're sending leftists to harass her in bathrooms, to harass her on airplanes, finding out that she's at a wedding and trying to get a wedding shut down because she's in attendance. I mean, this is so beyond psychotic, but that's where we are in America in 2021. And it's been completely normalized by people in the media and politicians who they support. These people are completely sick, gone in the head. The pandemic is over. This is the real pandemic. This is the real sickness. The real sickness is mental illness. Anybody normalizing this or looking the other way, shame. That's the real shame right there. Moving on. Elon Musk says he'll sell Tesla stock to solve world hunger if the UN shows how money is spent. I love this. I don't agree with everything Elon Musk does or says. I'm very suspicious of his merge with AI ambitions and all of that stuff. But he at the very least, he's not somebody that they can control. He's got a lot of money, a lot of power. He is very outspoken, and the things that he chooses to speak publicly about, they don't like. So the UN targeted him by saying he should, they targeted Bezos too, whatever, to say that if billionaires just gave like 6% of their wealth, I think 2% of the wealth, they could solve world hunger. So Elon Musk's official statement, he tweeted about this as well. I thought I highlighted it. These articles get really, sometimes they like refresh and then I'll lose my place. But he pretty much said, Elon Musk pretty much said, like, can you guys prove within a text message thread, or not text message, a Twitter thread, show me how exactly the money will be spent? And that's a brilliant response. I'm glad he clapped back with that response, because the UN, who has no interest in solving world hunger, let's be real, because if they had true intentions of solving the world's problems, then we wouldn't need them. We don't need them now, but we certainly wouldn't need them if we could solve world hunger, right? And there's something to be said about the way money is spent. How much money, for example, have we sent of taxpayer dollars to countries like Haiti? Where does that money go? If you could pull up the numbers, you can pull them up. The amount of money we give to Haiti every year, the amount of money we give to countries in Central America, like El Salvador, where does the money go if people are still trying to flee? Oh, that's right. We're basically financing corruption in those countries. We're subsidizing status quo corruption in these countries. So therefore, money doesn't solve the problem. You can't just throw money at the problem. And if they want money so bad, why don't they just print it? What's to stop them from printing? Why are they targeting Elon Musk specifically? Why aren't they calling by name Bill Gates? It's interesting how they pick and choose. They're very selective. Let's cherry pick and target Elon Musk for his wealth. But then let's also not explain how the money will be spent, because it'll just fill the coffers of corrupt politicians worldwide. That's all it is. It's just a grift. It's a money siphoning scheme. And all these globalists that meet overseas, they're in on it. So United Nations, we need to abolish them. Don't need them. Don't care about them. What is the statement? The governments are tapped out. This is why, and this is when the billionaires need to step up now on a one-time basis, $6 billion to help 42 million people that are literally going to die if we don't reach them, Beasley said. $6 billion to help 42 million people. Where did they get the number? $6 billion. Where did it come from? It's going to help 42 million people. Explain it. Matter of fact, I'm willing to bet that a majority of human suffering is due directly to the government involvement in their situation, whether that be starving them out, force inoculating them, creating economic situations that leave them in despair. It's always 90% of human suffering is man-made. That's a fact. Man trying to play God, man trying to control the outcome of the planet, the climate, humanity itself. And surprise, surprise, they get it wrong every time. But that is a very good point, though. If the billionaires and millionaires, at least the ones that virtue signal about matters like climate change and equity, if they care so much, why don't they redistribute their wealth right now? Why don't they just go hand out money to all the poor people around the world? Oh, they don't want to do that? What they want to do is use their money to control the resources that people rely on, therefore creating a dependency on them and empowering them. Because if it was just about money, they would just hand money to poor people. Let them spend it how they see fit. Some may go buy drugs. Some may go invest in the stock market. Some may buy a house. Some may do that for them. Instead of saying, what we're going to do is set up these organizations that are going to be tax shelters for me. And then through these organizations, we're going to create the illusion that we're trying to solve world hunger and climate change and drug abuse and all these other things. But in reality, nothing changes. It's all just a way for them to maintain their status quo. So props to Elon Musk for saying, how are you going to spend the money? And oh, by the way, why are you targeting me? There's richer people than Elon Musk. Bill Gates is one of them. Why doesn't Bill Gates just liquidate his assets, give all his money away to people, not to organizations, not to the World Health Organization, not to special interest groups that are going to control the resources that we all rely upon, like water, food, land? It's not hard to see through this. It's really not, especially if you're using discernment. Like the people that are claiming, we're going to fix the world, we're going to save the world, we care about the world. No, you don't. If you got these big ambitions, I'm not trusting you at all. Speaking of such, Joe Biden slammed for massive gas-guzzling 85-vehicle motorcade at COP26 summit. You can't make this up. They continue to cycle through the same 3 or 4 fear-mongering campaigns to keep everyone off balance. They go from racism is a public health emergency. COVID is a public health emergency. We're all going to die. Climate change is our existential threat. If we don't do something now, we're doomed. Domestic terrorism from white supremacy is the greatest existential threat we face as a nation. They just cycle through repeatedly over and over and over, and they never get tired of it. But here's how you know none of it's true. Climate change is not an existential threat. If you got all of these world leaders flying to a central location to meet in person, for what? If you're so concerned and it's a dire emergency, we've got to do something about climate change like 5 minutes ago, why the hell are you flying overseas in private jets, putting all that carbon emissions in the atmosphere? Why are you doing all that? Why have you heard of Zoom? Why can't y'all do Zoom call meetings? Do what you can to shrink your own carbon footprint, you hypocrites, you liars, you deceivers, instead of trying to convince all of us that we're going to die unless we empower you. It's just like the multi-millionaire that preaches from their little soapbox about solving world hunger and how we need to raise taxes for equity. They want you and I to pay for it instead of them using their resources. They could solve world hunger, poverty, et cetera, right now with their own cash they have on hand. But no, they don't want to do that. They want politicians to extract resources and wealth from you for redistribution purposes, where we all end up poor. And that's how communism is born, ladies and gentlemen. That's just the reality of it. But the same could be said for this climate change shenanigan right here. Why do you need 85 vehicle motorcade? For what? The hypocrisy. Why is Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos flying in private helicopters and jets going to these $1 million yachts to have boat parties for a birthday? Why is Obama having this massive birthday bash in Martha's Vineyard? What kind of carbon footprint is that? So no, I'm not buying this climate change is this grave danger we all face, because for one, you've been lying about it and fear-mongering. Your doomsday prophecies have never come to fruition, spanning decades, acid rain and everything else. And now it's an existential threat, and you yourself aren't taking it seriously. Biden's fallen asleep during the opening remarks. But it's such a dangerous thing. We have to take it seriously now. We have to take your money now. We have to raise your taxes now. We have to strip you of your civil liberties now. You can't do these things now, but we're going to do it. Same thing with COVID. It's such a crisis. Oh my gosh. We must have eternal booster shots. Nothing can go back to normal. Get used to wearing a mask unless you cross the border illegally. Unless you're the mayor of DC, the mayor of San Francisco, then you can go gather in public. You don't have to wear a mask. You can do whatever you want. See how that works? Rules for thee, not for me. But also you need to take it super seriously. Do it now, even though I'm not. And I'm on camera, completely ignoring all the rules I tell you to follow, including climate change. There's too many gas-guzzling vehicles on the road. Didn't Biden just say he's going to get millions of vehicles off the road? He could start with the 85 right here that was in his motorcade. That would be a pretty good start. And if white supremacist domestic terrorism and extremism is on the rise, maybe, just maybe, stop implanting FBI agents and informants and false flag attacks to set up Americans. If it's truly real, it would be exposed. It would expose itself on its own. I don't need to convince you that the sky is blue or the grass is green or water is wet. Do you need to convince somebody of that? No, because it's a fact of life. If what they're saying is true, racism and white nationalism and all this stuff is on the rise and cities are going to be underwater and we're all dead from COVID, then maybe you should close down the border and impose the restrictions across the board, and maybe you should follow it all yourself, lead by example. Frauds, phonies. Halloween COVID scare forces Shanghai Disney into lockdown as China steps up effort to eradicate the virus. Once China figures out how to eradicate a virus that constantly mutates, maybe they should share with the world. But hey, this headline's from CNN. They specialize in sending mixed messages and signals. I thought that we were going to have to just learn to live with this virus. And now they're saying China is trying to eradicate it. Very interesting. And very dystopian and very just kind of really weird. As you see this video here of people lined up to take tests, they had people at Disney walking around in hazmat suits. I mean, it just seems like something out of a movie that you may or may not have seen before. art imitates life, or maybe the other way around. I don't know. But on a scale of 1 to China, on a scale of 1 to Australia, where do you think we are as a country? And do you think we could get there? If you show this to your friends and family that are super, super pro-vax, pro-mask, pro-mandates, pro-government, telling us how to live their life, then show them this and see if they react with, oh, that's just Australia. That's just China. That'll never happen here. I guarantee you'll get more than a few people just totally just brush it off. But that's just creepy. Locking tens of thousands of visitors into Disneyland, locking them up until they take a test because of one case. That might be the most important detail of all this, because of one case. Just like Australia went back into a super strict lockdown, or was it New Zealand, over like 3 or 4 cases. But hey, it's totally about health. It's totally about your safety. Yeah, I don't think so. All right, I covered all the topics. And so I've got to run, actually. I'm over time here. We're at 1 hour and 15 minutes. This is incredible. Time really flew today. Actually, I don't even think I can really read any comments today, but I do want to thank the super chatters. I want to thank the moderators. I want to thank everybody that tunes in regularly. The views are up on the streams. So I appreciate all of you for getting the word out. Please give it a thumbs up. Make sure, that's important. That's one of the most important things about watching a stream, is that you engage with it via comments or likes. So please do that. Please, right now, as you're watching this, give this a thumbs up, share it. I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about, including the election of hopefully Glenn Youngkin and the other elections going on across the country that I didn't get a chance to cover. All right. Appreciate everybody for tuning in today. God bless you. I will catch you all in the next stream.